All right, we are live. So good afternoon, everybody. We are coming to you live from the Sichangu CDC Facebook page. And today we're chatting with Redco CEO Wizipon Little Elk. And the reason we're having this discussion today is actually really exciting because it was just yesterday that Redco and the Sichangu CDC, our sister organization, announced the launch of a new language program, which is called, and I hope I pronounce it correctly, Lakolya Waoniya. And I'm going to keep practicing that so I can get it down. So this program was created to pay Sichangu citizens to become fluent Lakota speakers. And this program is somewhat in the fresh stages of creation. So when it comes to transparency with the community, this is something that we'd like to take you all along on this journey as the program continues to grow. So now that this exciting news is out there and the community is starting to talk about it, let's just jump right into the conversation. And Weezy, thank you so much for going live with us today, just to talk about this new program. It's a new language revitalization program. And most of our community members already know who you are, but for anybody who doesn't know who you are, can you just take about 30 seconds or so to tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role is when it comes to this program?
Good afternoon, relatives. I greet each and everyone with a good heart. My name is Wizipha, and I'm from Ashke Tiushpai, and grew up in Grass Mountain, right there along the river. And I'm the CEO for Redco and our ecosystem of organizations, which includes Sichangu CDC and kind of all of the other work that we're doing. And again, we're an ecosystem of organizations, meaning they're separate, legally separate organizations, but all work under one umbrella, with shared vision around making our community a better place. Sometimes people use the word tribe, stay away from that. Really, this is about making our Sichangu Oyate a better place and working towards kind of the reforming and reconstituting the Ocheti Shako, the 7 council fires. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about our work and our ecosystem.
Awesome. So again, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, so I'm going to leave that to you. Go ahead and let us know again what this program is called and what it translates to.
Yeah. So we've launched our Lakolya Waoniya program, initiative, kind of whatever you want to call it. But and you pronounced it right. But Lakolya, typically refers to the Lakota language. Some people would say Lakota Wichoye, the Lakota language, but Lakolya, really refers to the speaking of the language. So for example, if you meet somebody and you say, Lakolya, well, that means, do you speak Lakota? And Waoniya, is the root word is Oniya, which really refers to kind of the breath of life. It refers to, kind of think of it as when babies are born and they take their first breath. That's Oniya. That's a sacred breath of life. And so Lakolya Waoniya could be translated in different ways. It could be speaking Lakota as I live. It could be the breath of life of the Lakota language. It could be breathing as I speak Lakota, or breathing is the breath of life as I speak Lakota. But however, we kind of, it's always hard to translate these terms into English. There's never a straight translation from Lakota to English. And really what this is, the full translation is this is about revitalizing our language. This is about leaning into who we are as Lakota. This is about strengthening our identity, strengthening our sovereignty as a people, as an Oyate. And one of the ways that we have to do that, that's central to who we are, to our identity, to our culture, to our ceremonies, to our future, is our language. And because of kind of the state of our language, and we're really at a crisis point. We have to move forward, and everyone has to kind of be working together, moving towards the same vision, having the same kind of heart and mind, that Hawachi Wajila, to not only just saving our language, but revitalizing it, so that in the future, we'll be having this conversation all in Lakota as opposed to English.
So I have two questions in one. How did this idea spark? Was it from one individual? Was it a group effort? Did it come from the community? And how long has this idea been in the works?
I always say a lot of the work that we do is work that has been around for a long time. I was really lucky that when I was a little boy, that I got to hang around a lot of the kind of old original founders and leaders of Sinte Gleshka University Lakota Studies Department. And I was just a little boy, and I'd sit there and I'd listen to these cultural experts, some of them medicine men. They would talk about all the work and their vision and ideals for our people. And a lot of it was I mean, they weren't calling it food sovereignty at that time, but it was food sovereignty. They were talking about education and language immersion. They might not have been using those words, but those are the ideas that they were talking about. And this very concept of being able to provide financial incentives to kind of make up for everything, to help people learn the language, that's been around for a long time. This particular project, has been about kind of 3 months, 4 months in development, when we kind of first had the opportunity to think big, to dream about something like this. Last year we started Wakanja Trokeakchi, which is the first Lakota language immersion school on Rosebud, and we started with a class of kindergartners. Now they got those kindergartners have moved on to first grade, and we got another class of kindergartners. So there's 2 classes there. That's good. That's important. That's needed for the little ones. But we also have to do something for adults. And over the years, and I've experienced this too, and I think a lot of us have, is so many of us want to learn the language. We want to be conversationally fluent. It's a part of our identity, but there's so many obstacles, really in our way that make it difficult. People work a full-time job. People have families. People have big families to take care of. A lot of people have work in the community. We just have everyday life. And, if you're working, you're away all day, you try to work it out so you can pick up the kids from school, come home, you're cooking dinner, you're cleaning the house, and you're lucky if you have just a little bit of time at the end of the day. And I've heard so many people say, I want to, but I don't have time, or I want to, but I don't have a group to learn with. I want to, learn the language, but I just don't have the support network or the means to support myself and my family. And so we said, you know what, let's just take all those obstacles out of the way. And what happens if, for a small group of people, their full-time job is simply to learn the language? And so part of it was around that idea that let's just remove the obstacles. A part of it is also around this idea of really redefining like what wealth is. From a Western perspective, capital plus labor equals wealth. That's it. In that world, you're taking something and you're working with it in order to create money. You cut a tree down, you turn it into a board, and then you sell the board. And that structure, that system is not traditional to us. We can operate in it, we can do well at it, but that's not wealth to us. That's just money, and money is what we use is a tool for us. What's wealth to us is, really our relatives plus our relationship protocols equals wealth. To be able to have a lot of relatives, and from our ways of looking at the world, we're related to everything. And then honoring those relationships through our relationship protocols, our wotakuye. That's what's most important to us. And in order to do that, we have to have the ability to pass on our cultural perpetuity, our ability to pass on our language and our culture to the next generation. And that's what's important. That's what wealth is to us. And so as we begin to think about how can we make an investment, how can we invest in our people and do something that's going to have a long-lasting impact into the future, what greater gift could we help somebody attain than conversational fluent in the Lakota language? You can't put a price on that. And so this is, a big part of what it's about as well, is saying, let's redefine wealth. Let's focus on kind of what's important here. And let's remove those obstacles and those barriers to people. So, when we have the program, it's going to be for 7 people. It'll be a regular full-time salary. They get benefits, and they're going to be treating this like a job for 3 years.
Awesome. That's really exciting. Sounds almost like a dream job that I'm sure a lot of people would love to have. But since we're already on the topic of money and investing, can you tell us where the funds came from to pay for this program?
This was from a philanthropic donor, who came to us and wanted to, do something significant for the community, around wealth. And so, we kind of came back and said, this is one of those big things that we want to do. And part of the reason, for doing this is also the urgency. A couple years ago, the tribe was able to identify that there was around 550 or so conversationally fluent speakers. So we have about 34,000 enrolled tribal members. So we have 34,000 members, and around 2 years ago, we had 550 fluent speakers. Recently, it came out that we were down to about 460 speakers. And then, just me counting over the last several months, we've lost 4 from that 160 or so. So now we're down to, somewhere around, 456 speakers. And so we're, over the course of 2 years, we've lost almost 100 speakers. And the most of those folks, are going to be, age 60 plus. And we have low life expectancies here in Rosebud. And a lot of our folks are, with COVID and the pandemic, highlighted and showed that a lot of our people, a lot of our relatives are also high risk. I think of like my mom, and she's on oxygen, and she's on permanent oxygen, and a lot of my relatives, a lot of everyone's relatives, have struggled with a lot of health issues. So we have a lot of people struggling with health issues. A lot of our people are older, and they're the ones who have the knowledge and who have the language. There's probably around 2 or 3 individuals under the age of 30 who are fluent. I hope there's more, but I think that's kind of what the numbers have shown. And there's basically 0 speakers under the age of 18. So when we look at all that, what we're seeing is that our language is in a state of emergency. Our language is in a state of crisis. And if we do not take big, bold, immediate action, we're going to lose our language. And we started the school and we said, we have 10 years to save the language, and that was a year ago. So we got 9 years, to get to a really good spot, to a place where we have a core, and we've preserved a core of people that are going to be able to speak, and bring this back.
So of course, Redco is known for economic development. So you were talking a little bit about wealth and investment. Why is it so important to invest in something, aside from saving the language? So much money has been put into killing off our identity. So why is it so important that so much money is being invested into this, rather than creating maybe a restaurant or another business to provide jobs for Sicangu citizens?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think a year or two, the tribe approved what's called their comprehensive economic development strategy, which is a big kind of a strategy, economic development strategy for the entire tribe. And that was put out to comment for the community. And the community came back and said that they wanted to include language revitalization as an economic development strategy. And I was just really struck by the community's wisdom and how important that is, and kind of like what that means, and what that can do for us. And if we don't have our language and our culture, who are we? If we don't have the ability to pass on our culture, who are we? And why should we even be doing this? We might as well just kind of give up and enter mainstream society. But and at the end of the day, that's really what we're working towards, is the betterment of our people, betterment of our communities, and the next generation, and especially with kind of the language, the crisis that we're in with our language. Everyone has a role to do. Everyone has a role to play. We all need to bring this issue, raise it up, make it important. And when we had an opportunity to do something that would also complement kind of the overall economic development strategy, complement the language immersion school, then we kind of jumped at that opportunity. And I think if people wanted to kind of look at it from another perspective, really our unique advantage is our identity as a people. And if at any point that identity starts to be questioned, we're going to be in a tough place. Right now, no one can really look at our community and question if we're Indian or not. But that's something that we want to protect, our identity and our ability to continue to have that. You mentioned the resources. When we looked at the kind of money that has been spent by the government eradicating or attempting to eradicate native language and culture, it's about $24 billion. But we looked at federal funding levels for schools, for Indian schools from 1818 through 1974. And 1974 is when the Indian Education and Self-Determination Act was passed. But between 1818 and 74, it was essentially the stated policy of the federal government from educational policy to kill the Indian to save the man. And, we've seen, we grew up and we heard our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents talk about what happened to them in the boarding schools. And a lot of those same issues have been brought to the forefront with, the boarding school movement and returning and returning a lot of those bodies of children who died at those boarding schools. And again, kind of Rosewood was one of the tribes at the forefront of that when we brought some of our relatives and ancestors home from Carlisle. So this is a part of that effort. And that when we think about $24 billion being spent to eradicate our culture and language, then we need to have an equal amount of funding and resources put back into language and culture revitalization across Indian country. And so this is us as a people saying, you know what, we experienced some tough things. We went through a hard time. There's been some difficult times, but we're not going to just sit down and sit back and be victims. We're going to do everything that we can to uplift ourselves, to rebuild ourselves, and not only for this generation, but to do that work for future generations as well.
I'm glad you brought up the issue with boarding schools. I believe this comes at just a great time when it, just thinking about what happened to our relatives and our ancestors. But now that we have a little more information about the background of the program, I just want to get into some more details that people are having questions about as the posts are making waves across Facebook. How long is this program and who can apply?
So we've designed this first round, this kind of first cohort to be 3 years. So when the applications open up, we're going to be asking people to make a 3-year commitment to participate in this. And the goal for those who participate is conversational fluency, to be able to have a conversation like we're having right now, but to do it all in Lakota. And good foreign language programs and colleges, people can achieve language fluency in 2 years. If they, take a language class with rigor, so they're spending 60 to 90 minutes a day with some kind of language lab and then 1 or 2 hours homework a night. For 4 semesters, you can become conversationally fluent. I saw a lot of classmates in college do that, and they were ready to go to a foreign country and live there, spend a lot of time there. So if we take 3 years and we have our participants spend 4 hours or more per day, just like a regular job, I think that we can achieve fluency. And again, this is going to be a job. You have to show up. You're going to take time off. You take leave. You get the full benefit package, retirement, etc. And it'll be a full-time salary. So again, this is a big commitment, and we're asking people to be making a 3-year commitment, but it's like making a 3-year commitment to a job. The money that was donated, we'll fund this through 3 years. We're hoping that and believe that it's going to be successful, and maybe this can be a model for the future. We know of at least one other tribe in the country that has done this, and they've kind of have a similar program to what we're designing, and they're producing fluent speakers, and that's the Cherokee Nation. And as we design this out, hopefully we'll get some of our people to go down and visit them, visit other tribes that might have similar programs, to learn, get lessons, figure out what works and what doesn't work. We're also hoping that, right now we're looking for a program coordinator, someone who can kind of be the coordinator for this. We're hoping that when we get that individual on board, that they're going to be able to work with the community and help design this and have a little bit more community input on kind of the nuts and bolts. I've spoken to some of the folks and who are kind of language experts and language teachers here in Rosebud, and they've said this sounds great. Keep us informed, and we want to participate in the process. Another question we've had is, okay, well, maybe I'm not officially a part of the program, but can I participate? Just on a volunteer basis. And I think the answer is probably going to be yes. Again, that's going to be developed by the program manager and whatnot. I think another interesting thing is, we're as a part of this, we're also going to be building what will start off and kind of become a language home. So we're going to be building a home out to Kewakbala. We have a whole housing area designated kind of up there behind the garden and grocery store. And so one of the first homes is going to be a 5-bedroom home back there. And that's going to serve as the headquarters for this program. So it's kind of taking this idea where, folks get a grant and then they buy a double wide. Well, let's build a permanent home, have this be part of the program. And then when the program, or hopefully we'll be able to have a more permanent space, we have a home for somebody after that. So again, this is taking kind of older concepts and saying, let's do it in a new way. Let's do it in a way that's going to have big impact on our community and kind of long-term impact on our community. And I mean, if we we're losing so many speakers so quick. And if we can start to replace some of those speakers with new speakers, that's priceless. We can never put a price on that.
I'm going to piggyback off the topic of bringing up Kewakbala. It was actually just announced today on Redco's Facebook page, the first design of, I believe, the 5-bedroom house. So if you're interested in seeing what that looks like, you can go to the Redco Facebook page and check it out. It's really amazing to actually be able to see it in front of your face rather than just visualizing it in your mind. So if you want to check that out, please do so by heading over to the Redco Facebook page. Also, if you're watching live, looks like there's a pretty decent amount of people watching live today. So if you have, go ahead and comment below, and we have somebody helping us out with those questions, and we'll be able to ask Wheezy Paw those questions at the end here. So just more questions though. I'm curious as to, let's say you have maybe 3 fluent speakers after 2 or 3 years. How will those 3 fluent speakers begin to teach the next generation if there's already this issue of time commitment? How do you see that being done?
I think that's a great question, right? Like, one, I think that we have this school, right? And I think that there's going to be greater demand and a greater movement through for all the schools, here in Rosebud for language teachers. But for sure, at Waoniya Tokeachi, we're going to be adding a class every year. So that we have a greater need for teachers. And if we have some of those folks, that people that they go through this program and then become teachers at Waoniya Tokeachi, that would be huge. That would be massive. That would be just literally kind of that 7th generation thinking, where we can have somebody go through a program like this, turn around and start teaching the next generation. One of the other things I'm hoping is that this is the kind of innovative thinking, big picture thinking that can get our allies and our supporters and our funders excited. One of the things that we don't talk about enough is, just from a financial perspective, how much wealth has been extracted from our people and our communities. And so on one hand, you had $24 billion spent on eradicating our language and culture. But when we look at buffalo, we've estimated that about $2 trillion worth of wealth was extracted when they killed the buffalo. Starting in 1800 with 60 million buffalo to 1900 when there were less than 1,000 buffalo, all the way up to today. And I mean, if you think about it, that's $2 trillion worth of wealth that was taken from us. When they moved us onto reservations, a lot of times they took our horses. A family with a small herd might be 5 horses. Family with a big herd might have had 100 horses. And it wasn't just horses. These were some of them were well trained. Like every family for sure had a really well trained buffalo runner. And if you look at a really well trained horse today, that's worth about $20,000. If you came from a family and there was a warrior in that family, he would have had a war horse. Again, well trained horse, would have been $20,000 at least. So when we got put onto the reservations, they took our horses, they killed them or they sold them, and that was hundreds of thousands of dollars that was taken from each one of our families. They took our homes, they took our artwork, they took our guns, our bows, the things that we needed to use to hunt and protect ourselves. And it was, hundreds of thousands of dollars of wealth that was taken from us. And, what that has resulted in is, right today, for every $1 of white wealth in this country, there's only 8 cents of Native American wealth. And so, I mean, that's just crazy. It's mind-boggling to think about that kind of disparity. So now is the time, I think, at this moment in history where we can really see the need and the justification for a massive investment into Native language and culture revitalization. And I think that when we take big, bold actions like this, the help comes, the assistance comes. I think personally that Tlankashla clears a path for this kind of work. And sometimes we're able to do things that seem impossible. I remember, being around when the tribe first bought Peshla, and there was a big price tag on that, and it seemed kind of impossible at the time. But the tribe took a stance and said, we're going to go after this and protect this sacred site. And everything worked out, and resources came through. I think that if we take a stance and say we're going to stand for our language, we're going to stand for our culture, we're going to stand for our children, we're going to stand for buffalo, we're going to stand for land, we're going to stand for our future, that people are going to be inspired by that. And I think that resources are going to continue to flow, and that the kind of help that we need is going to be there. So I'm hoping that, that this isn't just going to be kind of a 3-year pilot program. I'm hoping that this is, going to be the kind of work that we can, do and continue for the next generation. Because, like I said, we got 9 years really to really kind of functionally save our language. So there's not just a few people, like a really small group of people speaking, but to get as many more conversationally fluent speakers as possible.
When you talk about bold action, I think it's really important because you hear that a lot of times just in life decisions and running a business, whatever it might be. Sometimes you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know what's going to happen, but you have good intention, and it's not to benefit yourself. It's to benefit everyone in the community, especially Sichangu people. So I'm just glad to hear that, Redco and the Sichangu CDC is taking that bold action. Another question that I have that is just specifically about community and the connection to this program. So is it being talked about in meetings that those who are going to be running this program are going to be, they're looking to the Rosebud community for insight and recommendations on the future of this program?
Yeah, like I think that we wanna see, what other people have to say and insights and ideas. Because there's, I've heard one person, say that, one of the things we need to do is, you know, just we need to invest in our fluent speakers as well. That in order to help our fluent speakers learn how to teach, because teaching is a craft, teaching is an art, teaching is a skill, and so we need to invest in teaching fluent speakers how to teach as well. So I had never really thought about that on personally, but those are the kind of ideas and insights that we want to see. And I'm just excited to learn more, and hear what people want to do and what they want to say. Ideas for how we grow and expand this. What kind of partnerships are going to be there? What kind of partnership opportunities? And this is just one piece of the overall Lakota language revitalization puzzle. That there's a lot of different work that has to be done. And this is just one piece of it, to work with a small group of highly motivated individuals, highly motivated adults who want to learn the language. We got to figure out how to get an all hands on deck approach, so that everyone all across the entire tribe is working and moving towards this.
I want to jump into some comments that we're receiving from those who are watching live. So one of the first questions here is, what is the timeline of the application process?
So we don't have an application out yet. We're looking to launch and begin the program in the spring, and really take between now and the springtime to develop that out. So we don't have an application process. We don't have criteria. One thing that I would say is, at least kind of what I'm thinking, from a criteria standpoint is, we want Sichangu people, or people who, another indigenous person who's demonstrated a long-standing commitment and tie to our community. So they may not be enrolled, but they're part of our community. This is kind of what I think this is for us. Kind of from that standpoint. So again, don't have specific timeline yet. We wanted to get the idea out there. We want to get the program coordinator on board. We want to get our teacher on board, because it's going to take a lot of time to put together a good curriculum, and a curriculum that's going to work for people. We have a lot of partnerships to build, and learning to do. So we want to plan and take that time. I think one of the, you kind of previously mentioned kind of like big, bold. The other, I think kind of word there is also brave. And I mean, man, our people were so brave, and they put their life on the line, and they did so much, so we kind of have to take brave action today as well. And then the other thing that we were, people don't talk about this, but as Lakota, we were amazing planners, and we were really good at logistics. We could set up and break an entire camp in an hour, and we were as good as any military unit in the world. And we planned out a year. We hunted, and we gathered berries and timsila, and we saved all of these resources and then planned it out for an entire year. And so that's, we want to live into those same ideals and plan this program out over the next several months so that when it comes time to implement it, we do a really good job with it.
I can appreciate the transparency in all of this. Of course, we might not have all the details of everything, but I think a lot of programs or organizations will come up with an idea and then they'll run with it without hearing from the community first and being transparent. So the fact that we're hearing the beginning stages of this program is really great. Getting to the next question here, somebody else asked if you could elaborate on housing security for program employees.
Housing security for program employees. Well, long term, when we look at like the housing crisis on Rosebud, man, it's tough. I mean, the last number I saw, was we had an immediate need for 3,000 homes on Rosebud. And, over the last several years, it looks like we've been losing housing stock overall faster than we've been replacing it. So that 3,000 number has been getting larger, not smaller. And so housing is just an issue across the board. And then when we look at our employees, housing is always one of the biggest challenges. And then when when you talk to people who are moving home, the first thing they ask is, where am I going to live? And, geez, I was looking back, I was like, when me and my wife moved home, man, we lived with my mom for like 4 or 5 months. And until we could find a place, it's tough. And so, part of what we're looking at is, again, we're paying somebody a full-time salary so that, if they have a job, they don't have to quit their job, or, they're not losing that income, so they can continue to pay the bills, pay rent, put food on the table. Long term, though, with Kea Wakbala, phase 1 is going to be 10 homes. And, ultimately out there, we want to build between 400 and 600 living units between homes and apartments. So that's the plan long term. But, this housing shortages that we're facing is, that is just, it's devastating to our community. And we got to figure out how we're going to solve that. And ain't not going to be one single person or individual or program that solves it. It's going to take working together, with planning and coordination.
Definitely. I have another really good question here. So with bold action comes bold questions. We have a question here that asks, can we approach churches to help fund the program as an act of reconciliation?
I'd say, heck yeah. We should, right? Like, I think that would be an amazing way of reconciliation on a personal level, so let's put a list together and start talking to them.
Well, this is really exciting. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation today. I, of course, have, even though with the work that I do with Redco and the Sicangu CDC, I still have questions about the different programs going on. And then we have community members asking us those same exact questions. And I just tell myself, before anything, I'm a member of the Rosebud Sioux tribe. So whatever questions I have, I'm sure everybody else has those same questions. And a lot of those were answered today. So far, it looks like we are receiving really good feedback from the community, which is amazing to see that so many other people are just excited about this as well. One other thing I wanted to just put in your ear, because other people are asking the same question, is they would like to see materials provided to the general community once this program kicks off. So something else to think about as the planning continues throughout all of this. And again, this is a dream job for somebody out there. So if you're interested in getting involved with this, definitely would like to encourage those of you to apply. So do you have any last words, Weezy Pa, that you want to share with everybody who is watching?
Well, I mean, I think like even just that last comment, I think is huge, right? Because to like comments and feedback like that, to say, hey, like make sure that we get some printed written material that we can pass out. Some folks have said, hey, make sure we go to each one of the communities and attend a community meeting and kind of talk about it and see if there's input there. So stuff like that's great. Like that's exactly the kind of feedback we want. Those kinds of ideas. And again, I would just say that a lot of times we always focus on the bad and the negative. And the bad and the negative in this situation is our language is going to die out, right? Like that's the negative way of looking at it. But the positive way of looking at it is we have an opportunity to save it. We have an opportunity to revitalize it. And one of the things that a close friend of mine is always saying is we have to have this belief that our best days are ahead of us. And I really believe that. It was a Sichangu person that went up Humblecha Vision Quest in the Black Hills and had a vision that there would be a period of decline for 6 generations, but that the 7th generation would emerge and that they would be the ones to take our people to new heights that we've never seen before. That there would be this reemergence and revitalization of our people. And I believe that, and it's always funny. My mom, she's always telling me, she's like, Weezy, you are not 7th generation, you're 6th generation. Your job is to help pave the way for this 7th generation. And so I think all of us, like every single one of us has that duty to create the conditions. And some people out there are 7th generation. But these prophecies, they don't happen on their own. It takes work, it takes hard work. So, if we all work together to save our language, we can, and we can bring it back in a way that where everyone's speaking, where all of these conversations are happening in Lakota, and people can stand up and hold their head high and be proud to speak their language. Where previously it was, people were shamed and beat down for speaking their language. Now we can praise people and uplift people for speaking their language. So that's what we're working for. Those are the better days that are ahead of us. It's gonna happen. So really, it's just about getting to work now.
Just sort of putting that into another perspective, I believe in Western society, they're all about immediate benefits. And I think with just being a Lakota Waoniya, no matter what, I always feel like the work that I'm doing, as long as there's good intention behind it, and maybe other people can relate to this as well, is we may not always see the benefits of the work that we're doing. And that's why it's easy to be negative about something new that's starting or a new program that's starting. But it's not about us, it's about hopefully the next generation. So just another spin to that. I do have one other comment that I would like to share, because this one is also a very bold comment and very a good example of this 7th-gen thinking. And the comment was, the tribe would eventually ditch all English textbooks in school, and they would convert solely to Lakota from Head Start and on. So just wanted to share that with you there.
And there's an example of that. The Maori people in New Zealand, they took the same journey about 50 years ago. And now their government, their materials, and all their schools are 100% in Maori. And that's an example. We can do it. I love that. Let's make it happen.
All right, Weezy. Well, this was a really fun conversation. Thank you so much. I don't know if you hear it enough, but definitely appreciate the work that you're doing as far as everybody who's on the journey as well, helping. If there's nothing else you'd like to share, we can go ahead and just top it off here.
Well, I just Wopila to you and to everybody else. It's not me. I don't really. I just kind of talk, and everyone else does the work.
Yeah.
All of this is team, right? And all of this is wotakuye. And when Lakota people, when Sichangu people, we all come together with one heart, one mind, positive energy. There's nothing that we can't accomplish. And so, again, just wopila to you and everybody else and the team and to everyone who's, moving in this direction. Just, I'm always humbled and just filled with gratitude to just to be a part, just to have the privilege to work with people.
Definitely, I've been able to witness everybody just working behind the scenes and the passion that everybody puts forth in the work that they do. And it's always to benefit others and to help the community. So that's what, I'm passionate about as well. And I just like to be a part of a team that can share that together. So if you're watching, I would love for you all to do us a favor and spread the word. We want to get this information and this new program out to as many people as possible. So if you could please share this on your Facebook page, you could even send it as a personal message to a friend or family member who you think would be just as excited as everybody else about this new program. So we'll go ahead and end it here. Again, thank you everybody for your questions and tuning in, and we will catch you all next time. Doksha.